he becomes conditioned by these modes. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating. It frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode develop knowledge, but they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi trishna sanga sambhavam tan nibanati kunteya karma sangena dehinam. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, one is bound to material fruitive activities. Tamastvagyana jam vidhi mohanam sarva dehinam pramadalasya nidrabis tan nibadnati bharata. O son of Bharata, the mode of ignorance causes the delusion of all living entities. The result of this mode is madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati raja karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tama pramade sanjayatyuta. The mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions him to the fruits of his action, and ignorance to madness. Rajas tamash cha bibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata raja sattvam tamash chaiva tama sattvam rajas tata. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness, O son of Bharata, and sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion, and at other times the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyad vivridham sattvam ityuta. The manifestations of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. Lobha pravritir aramba karmanam ashama spriha rajasyetani jayante Viviridhe Bharatarshaba. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, uncontrollable desire, hankering, and intense endeavor develop. Do we do this one? Do we do 13? If we start with 2? So we do 13? Okay. Aprakasho pravrittishcha pramado moha evacha tamasyetani jayante vivridhe kuru nandana. O son of Kuru, when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, madness, illusion, inertia, and darkness are manifested. Yada sattve pravridhe tu pralayam yati dehabrit Tadotama vidan lokan amalan pratipadyate. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets. Okay, text 2. Since we started with it, or? 4. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, this is chapter 14, text 4. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. Purport. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original father of all living entities. The living entities are combinations of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but in every planet, even in the highest where Brahma is situated. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth there are living entities, even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother, material nature, and Krishna's seed-giving process. The purport is that the living entities being impregnated in the material world, come out and form at the time of creation according to their past deeds. This is a really nice point because in school we learned that there was only life on this one planet. They told us there were millions of planets. Is there a comment? No. They told us there were millions of planets, but that there's only life on this one. So it's pretty odd. It's kind of a pretty self-centered idea. There's only life happening around where I am, and that's it. But actually we see here Krishna, who makes all of the planets and all the unlimited universes, is explaining that there's living entities everywhere. There's the material nature, and then the soul takes shelter of a suitable form, and then takes birth in the material nature in whatever type of 8,400,000 different bodies, different species. And the living entities being impregnated in the material world come out and form at the time of creation according to their past deeds. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. So then also we learned in school, we learned the theory of evolution. I never connected the point in school that all these ideas start with the word theory, which means it may be like this. I thought it was a fact. I thought we learned like the fact of evolution and the textbooks were giving you all the facts, but they were theories, which means it's a guess. So we learned the guess about a possibility of evolution, but that's not actually, there's something to it, but it wasn't the complete picture. Because as we understand here, the soul is taking shelter of different forms and evolving based on its consciousness. So the soul can take shelter of a blade of grass, and then its consciousness can go up a bit, and it can later take shelter of an insect, then a fish, then bird, mammal, these different, like this, going through the different forms of life. And then eventually get to the human form of life, which is the loophole in this whole system of birth and death, where we can actually use our intelligence to get us out of this predicament of birth and death. So that's just a brief point on that. So it's not that the body is evolving, like that in school we learned that a human being comes from a monkey. So that makes some sense. The monkey's got some digits on its hands and they look kind of similar. I've been told before that I look like a monkey. So there's some similarities between the forms, but it also doesn't hold up, because you can see that all the monkeys are still here on the planet. The guess is that everything is evolving, so they transform from one type of form to the next throughout the whole species. It's advancing, but we can see that there's still all the different types of monkeys, and then there's still all the different types of human beings. But this one's pretty conclusive. You don't see any half monkey, half human thing. If they're saying that it transforms, it evolves into a human, we don't see that in-between thing anywhere of some half man, human, monkey thing. But so that's not the case. What is the case that is presented in the Vedas, presented by Krishna himself, is that all the 8,400,000 species are already there, and the soul can take shelter of all of these different forms in the material world. And then in this way, there's a spiritual evolution of consciousness going from a lower grade body to a higher grade one. And then in the human form of life, we can utilize our intelligence and our consciousness to not take on another material body. Because Krishna explains wherever our consciousness is at, wherever our mind is focused on at the time of death, that's where we will go at the time of death without fail. So if we've lived our life similar to different species in the world, whether it's an animal or a demigod or whatever, then we'll take on that body. But if our mind is always associating with Krishna, then we'll take on a body like Krishna's in the spiritual world. No more temporary material bodies. Material nature consists of the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. The living entity, because he is transcendental, has nothing to do with this material nature. Still, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because living entities have different kinds of bodies, in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode develop knowledge, but they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. Purport. The living entities conditioned by material nature are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless. All these types of psychological manifestations are causes of the entity's conditioned status in nature. How they are differently conditioned is explained in this section of Bhagavad Gita. The mode of goodness is first considered. The effect of developing the mode of goodness in the material world is that one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. A man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries, and he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. The representative type is the Brahmana, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. This sense of happiness is due to understanding that, in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. Actually, in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness. Is there anything that stands out about that, or any questions about this mode of goodness? Yes, Ananda Prabhu?
Yeah, the sense of happiness is due to understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. So we're supposed to take advantage of the mode of goodness only when one is situated or has a little bit of goodness. That's human life. Actually, you can actually exercise your free will. If you're too much conditioned by the modes of passion and ignorance, you're an animal essentially. You can't exercise much of your free will. So when we realize that, then we're supposed to take advantage of the mode of goodness, and then by then having more control of your free will, you can actually overcome all the modes. Because Prabhupada in the previous purport, if you see that, he says that because the living entities have different kinds of bodies in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. So more or less, until we come up to the platform of goodness, we're more or less pushed by the modes of material nature. And this is confirmed in the previous chapter, chapter 3, where Krishna says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmiti sarvasha hankara vimandumaharma kartahamiti manyate. Those under the lower modes, they're covered by this false ego, and they think that they're actually the doers, but they're being induced by the modes of material nature. So I was just thinking about this point, because it seems that it's contradictory to the previous chapter, chapter 13, where it says, I can't remember the verse, but it's saying that we're actually the cause of our own suffering and happiness. But here in this text, it's saying that the modes are. So how do you reconcile this? Is that we're actually supposed to be the cause of our own happiness and distress, but under the lower modes, we have almost no free will. But when we take advantage of the mode of goodness, then we can come up to the platform of eventually having control of our free will and then transcend completely the modes of material nature. So you got goodness and then Shuddha Sattva. So I was just thinking these different links in the previous chapters. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, we want to do our service. We want to do whatever is best for serving Krishna as nicely as possible. So we're now in a very amazing opportunity where we get the chance to render direct service every day to Krishna's deity form, to the spiritual master, to the devotees, and all these different services. We're like in the best sphere of activities right now. So we want to do them as best as possible because Krishna, he's the best person. So it's good to be in this mode of goodness because as we're seeing, one can understand spiritual knowledge easier. Things can be done effectively. Like if we read about the symptoms of the other ones which are coming up, like in the mode of ignorance, madness is one of the symptoms. So madness isn't a good qualification for doing any sort of job or any sort of task, you know? It's not, that's not really going to work out. If someone wants to get some job done and they hire like some crazy guy that's on the street, you know, it's going to turn out pretty wacky. So it's good to not take shelter of the mode of ignorance as much as we don't want to take shelter of it at all. And if there's ways that we can get out of it and more towards the mode of goodness, that's really helpful for our service. That's the point I'm trying to make with these examples. The difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. In this way, he becomes conditioned. The best examples are the scientist and philosopher. Each is very proud of his knowledge, and because they generally improve their living conditions, they feel a sort of material happiness. This sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. Yeah, it's not, we don't want to just be in the mode of goodness and then become complacent and think, okay, it's nice here in this material world, so I can just hang out this life, next life. Maybe next life I'll go back to Godhead, but I'm pretty comfortable, so it's okay. So that's this happiness conditioning. So that's why Krishna is also explaining that we should go beyond these modes of, become transcendental to these modes of material nature. And we can do that by engaging in his service under his directions, which are given by the devotees, the spiritual master, and the scriptures. So if we actually follow those instructions, then we can be out of this entanglement of the modes of nature. You have a question? Yeah, that'd be good. Is the blue one somewhere? Okay, I can keep reading the purport for a minute. As such, what is this? Bound to the mode of goodness. As such, they are attracted toward working in the mode of goodness. And as long as they have an attraction for working in that way, they have to take some type of body in the modes of nature. There is no likelihood of liberation or of being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one may become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to the illusion of the material energy, one thinks that that sort of life is pleasant. So we don't want to be attached to the material world in any way, whether it's a nice, clean house out in the nature, and it's very peaceful and mode of goodness, or whatever it is. We don't want to become attached to the material world, because then we're seeing, if we're attached to the modes of nature, we continually will be given shelter in the modes of nature. It's not nice shelter, like it's not shelter like something that's comforting, but it's more like shelter like a prison, because we don't have much free will. We're governed by the modes of nature in the material world.
Yeah, I wanted to make 2 points. One is on this point that I like when Prabhupada says there, this sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. Basically, there's some pride because they're happy and they have some knowledge, so they feel better than other people. And when they are proud, then, then they become attached to some or attracted to some work because they feel like it's they're getting some good benefit out of that type of lifestyle or whatever. So Prabhupada says repeatedly, one may become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. So things which are good, that everybody will agree with are positive things, can also be an impediment in the spiritual path. So there's different things like if somebody is very attached to making the body very fit, in general, we understand that's really good. Why not? Because they live in the body, but their knowledge of how to actually make the body healthy makes them actually proud because they see that guy's a fatty or something weird like that, and then they feel that they're better. So then we become attached to that that way of working in this world, and then we have to get another body, even if it's healthy, still has to die. So that's one thing. But what's great is that when we focus on the spiritual, then all of it is included. You already get healthy because Krishna tells you how to be healthy, even in the Gita itself. Be regulated in your work, in your sleep, in your recreation, like that. So then the other point that I wanted to say was that that the Bhagavad Gita mode of goodness. Let me see here. Oh yeah, I think that was basically it. That there's some, like if somebody likes to do breath work or something, or they like to do exercise or something like that, sometimes the devotees may make them may express that actually those things are not the highest thing. And it's not that we're saying that they're bad, they're good, but there's still an attachment that has to be overcome by service. And the main thing we should be attached to is serving Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a really important point. We want to be in the mode of goodness because it's more or less like the express lane for advancing in spiritual life, understanding spiritual things, doing things nicely, taking the expressway rather than the country road or like the rubble path. Or I wouldn't even compare a mode of ignorance to a rubble path. It's more like it's a road going in the wrong direction. So we want to take the expressway, which is the mode of goodness, but we don't want to be attached to any of these modes of nature. Because like you're saying, that attachment won't help us. It'll keep us in the material world. It'll keep us in the bodily platform of life. Or also, I was reading, one doesn't want to become attached to the modes of nature because in this material world, it's always a mix of them. So even if one is, okay, I'm very paka, I'm very much in the mode of goodness, they're always changing. Just like there's the three primary colors, and then you mix those, you got the secondary, mix them, tertiary, mix it, and it expands more and more. So just like that, the modes of nature are working in this material world, but there's always some mix. So one might be in the mode of goodness today and live some very nice and simple life, and then they might be some rich man more in the mode of passion, and then at another time they might be some poor person with absolutely nothing and addicted to all sorts of abominable activities. Because it's always a mix. It's always changing. I think there's one comment, and then your comment.
Hare Krishna. Prabhupada describes elsewhere the mode of goodness like the airport. It's from there you can actually take the flight and transcend the modes altogether. In fact, knowledge doesn't come from tamagun and passion. It's from the mode of goodness you get knowledge. So you have to actually be attached to the mode of goodness, but not for your own sense gratification, not because you like the mode of goodness and you're enjoying that platform, but you're attached to it for the sake of becoming Krishna conscious. Actually, Prabhupada in Bhagavatam explains in a purport that without coming to the mode of goodness, it's impossible to come to Suddha Sattva, actually. You can't actually do it. It's the only platform to actually elevate. So we have to actually take advantage of it. It's the gift of material nature that we should take advantage of to transcend material nature.
I think it's really interesting too because it's like this mode of goodness. Like for example, if someone's doing something that they would consider like good for themselves, like working out or maybe meditating or something, right? Like, but not like chanting or something, right? Like doing it for Krishna. It may help them at first because this mode of goodness is helping them, right, as they like progress. But then at some point, it's almost like you forget that it's not like this process that like you become so attached to the process, you forget that what is really doing this or like how you're progressing is because of Krishna. And so it's really interesting because then to take like that spiritual like jump past the mode of goodness, it almost sounds like, well, now you have to like become disattached to like all these processes or all these things that maybe got you to this state, and remember that all of this was because of Krishna, and kind of like turn to Krishna in that sense and become attached to serving Krishna to make that jump from the mode of goodness to the spiritual path. So it's really interesting because you kind of just forget when you're in this world, like it's not the thing that I'm doing that is helping me progress, it's Krishna. And when you realize that, that's kind of where it seems like you kind of break that mode of happiness and able to make that jump a little bit more.
Yeah, that's also a really nice point. It's the devotional service is the safest place to be. Because when we're engaging in devotional service, which is a transcendental activity, we're taking shelter of the person who's in control of everything. So it's the safest place. Whereas even if someone is very nicely situated in the mode of goodness and is doing great austerities and great yogic activities, still there's a chance to fall down because these are still the modes of nature. And so, like for one example, there's Subari Muni, and he was engaging in great austerities under the water for many, many years. It's not that he was just doing some in and out breath or what. No, he wasn't doing any breaths. He was submerged in the water many years. You know, you get barnacles on the skin and it's all falling off. And that's really intense. So he's situated in these great austerities, but still this austerity and everything, it's within the modes of nature, the mode of goodness. So then as soon as some fish came by and his attention was diverted to these fish who were having intercourse, he saw the fish, mode of passion increases, and he gives up this whole yoga practice and goes and gets married to many wives. After years and years underwater, this great austerity, and then he just gives it up. Wait, 60? 60. So it's a safer position to take shelter of Krishna, to engage in devotional service rather than do anything involving within the modes of nature, because they're always changing the mode of passion. Like Krishna explained in a really cool way, saying sometimes the mode of passion takes over the mode of goodness, sometimes two modes take over another one. So they're always changing, so it's a dangerous position. But we take shelter of devotional service, then we're under Krishna's protection and out of these modes of material nature. Okay, we can read a little more of the purport. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, one is bound to material fruitive activities. Purport. The mode of passion is characterized by the attraction between man and woman. Woman has attraction for man, and man has attraction for woman. This is called the mode of passion. And when the mode of passion is increased, one develops the hankering for material enjoyment. He wants to enjoy sense gratification. For sense gratification, a man in the mode of passion wants some honor in society or in the nation, and he wants to have a happy family with nice children, wife, and house. These are the products of the mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very hard. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities and thus becomes bound by such activities. So this is describing the mode of passion. And someone may think, oh, nice family, nice home, nice prestige, and these other things. That's not so bad. But we know what is the mode, how is the mode of passion characterized, or how is it described in the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, how is it described? It's like what in the beginning? Mode of passion. Nectar. And then poison in the end. So these things might sound kind of nice, but the mode of passion is characterized by being sweet in the beginning and then like poison in the end. Whereas the mode of goodness is the opposite. It's something you take on some difficulty, it's uncomfortable, and it's like poison in the beginning. Oh, this is horrible. Wake up at before 4 a.m. Like, this is crazy. And I'm trying to sleep till noon. But then it's like nectar in the end. Oh, wow. I can more time for chanting Hare Krishna, getting more absorbed in my rounds, making some advancement, reading Prabhupada's books early in the morning. Something like this becomes more pleasurable in the end, actually. So, of course, all those activities are also transcendental. But you can use the mode of goodness, that austerity in the morning, to then do these transcendental activities easier. Therefore, it is clearly stated that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities and thus becomes bound by such activities. In order to please his wife, children, and society, and to keep up his prestige, one has to work. Therefore, the whole material world is more or less in the mode of passion. Modern civilization is considered to be advanced in the standards of the mode of passion. Formerly, the advanced condition was considered to be in the mode of goodness. If there is no liberation for those in the mode of goodness, what of those who are entangled in the mode of passion? I'll read just a little bit longer, and then we can have some questions. O son of Bharata, the mode of ignorance causes the delusion of all living entities. The result of this mode is madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. In this verse, the specific application of the word tu is very significant. This means that the mode of ignorance is a very peculiar qualification of the embodied soul. This mode of ignorance is just the opposite of the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness by development of knowledge, in the mode of goodness by development of knowledge, one can understand what is what. But the mode of ignorance is just the opposite. Everyone under the spell of the mode of ignorance becomes mad, and a madman cannot understand what is what. Instead of making advancement, one becomes degraded. The definition of the mode of ignorance is stated in the Vedic literature. Under the spell of ignorance, one cannot understand the thing as it is. For example, everyone can see that his grandfather has died, and therefore he will also die. Man is mortal. The children that he conceives will also die. So death is sure. Still, people are madly accumulating money and working very hard all day and night, not caring for the eternal spirit. This is madness. So you see, this is what happens in the mode of ignorance. It's more or less craziness, insanity, or delusion. So when someone loses their mind, they don't know who they are, why they're doing what they're doing. And we see in modern society, because there's like a huge amount of the mode of ignorance and passion in society now, and almost no goodness, people are almost crazy. Don't know who they are, don't know why they're doing what they're doing. If we were sane, we would know, okay, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, and I'm doing this because it's pleasing to Krishna. But people are running around without any idea. Ananda, Prabhu?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that even all those realizations people, quote unquote, have under the influence of some intoxication, that's all in the mode of ignorance also. So.
That's a really good point. Yeah, every day when we go and distribute books and people come up and share these different philosophies and things, often it's like, I have no idea what anybody's talking about. People say some really crazy things. And so, yeah, we don't want to have any increase of the mode of ignorance in our life. We want to get rid of it as much as possible because we're seeing the result of it is if our goal is to serve Krishna and we want to do it nicely or productively, what productivity is there with madness? Or, okay, I add just a little more. I've got my whole plan here of how to get this task done. Let me just add a little bit more of craziness to it. That's never going to be a good bet or a good way to do it. In their madness, they are very reluctant to make advancement in spiritual understanding. Such people are very lazy. When they are invited to associate for spiritual understanding, they are not much interested. They are not even active like the man who is controlled by the mode of passion. Thus, another symptom of one embedded in the mode of ignorance is that he sleeps more than is required. 6 hours of sleep is sufficient, but a man in the mode of ignorance sleeps at least 10 or 12 hours a day. Such a man appears to be always dejected and is addicted to intoxicants and sleeping. These are the symptoms of a person conditioned by the mode of ignorance. Are there any questions or comments? Realizations? Mm-hmm. This one?
Why is it that the standard of advancement, or the signpost of advancement in modern times is mode of passion, in as opposed to previously when it was mode of goodness?
I think Ananda has a really nice answer for this one, but just a simple thing is, this is Kali Yuga, so everything is very degraded and there's no value for religious principles at all. Irreligion is religion in Kali Yuga. So pretty much anything helpful is seen as unhelpful in Kali Yuga. So people are more attached to the mode of ignorance, mode of passion. That's seen as a good thing. Pretty much anything bad is seen as good in Kali Yuga. Everything's totally backwards. If someone who's ever the most outlandish personality, that person, they want to, that he should be the king. I remember seeing there's a whole description of the symptoms of Kali Yuga in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they're all crazy. Like brahmacharis. Brahmacharis are supposed to be very clean. And it says in the Kali Yuga, in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, the brahmacharis will be very dirty. So it's like, well, then what's the point? And when I first read that, I thought this was really interesting because the different words used in the Bhagavatam and the scriptures, they're kind of foreign words. So sometimes I think, okay, it's just some out there idea. Like brahmachari, I think, okay, that just means what? Maybe who's ever wearing an orange dhoti in Kali Yuga. But no, brahmachari, it means the student life. From 5 to 25, one gets trained up. So it's really interesting. In the purport, it's explained by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada that we have even seen in the dorms, in the dormitories in America, that the students live the most atrociously. They're the dirtiest places on earth, the dormitories. So I thought that was really interesting to read because all of these things that are being explained, the wording might, at least for me, make me think of some other idea or I can't relate it. Then we see they're actually explaining all these things in position to where they are today. So that's Kali Yuga. There's a lot of ignorance and passion and it's dirty. Are there any last comments or questions? Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.